Hello and welcome to our CNBC TV 18 special, the government versus private broadcasters. I'm Shireen Bhan. Earlier this week, the Information and Broadcasting Ministry notified that all matches of the upcoming Hockey World Cup are of national importance, quote-unquote, and effectively push Star India into a tight spot. The notification essentially means that Star India will have to share the live feed of all of these matches with Doordarshan, which would then telecast this on its terrestrial and DTH platform. But according to the Sports Act of 2007, only the live feeds of the semi-finals and the final matches are to be shared with Doordarshan. So why the sudden notification? The Information and Broadcasting Ministry has argued that since the event is being held in India, it is an event, again, quote-unquote, of national importance. Private broadcasters are crying foul and say the notification is arbitrary and unfair as it comes less than 15 days before the start of the event. Also, could this just be the tip of the iceberg? Remember, last month, the Information and Broadcasting Ministry proposed to amend the Sports Act. This in order to ensure that a larger number of Indian viewers have access to sporting events that the government deems to be, again, quote-unquote, of national importance. Now, if these amendments go through, Doordarshan will be able to transmit sporting events not only through its terrestrial and DTH networks, but also via private cable networks and other DTH networks. Private sport broadcasters argued that this proposed amendment are unsporting as it virtually forces broadcasters who've paid big bucks to bag sporting rights to share live feeds for free. The proposed amendments have been made open for public consultation till the 31st of December. We will discuss that and more with our guests. But first, my colleagues Ashmit Kumar and Farah Bukwala Vora join me to explain the legal position and the impact of the proposed amendments. Let me go across to Ashmit Kumar first. Ashmit, explain to our viewers the legal facets of this matter. What exactly does the amendment propose?
Right, so the amendments that have been proposed by the MIB would effectively translate into sports broadcasts then being broadcast by cable operators as well as private DTH networks, which is a big concern as far as sports broadcasters are concerned. Let's, in fact, take a look at what is exactly happening. There are two acts to keep in mind. One is, of course, the Sports Act. Section 3.1 is important here. The Section 3.1 essentially says that broadcasters need to share it with Prasar Bharati, which would be, and then Prasar Bharati would then transmit it to DD National and DD Sports, as well as the DTH network, which is Free Dish. Now, this is something that sports broadcasters are comfortable with. What they're not comfortable with is this third caveat here. The government is seeking to, in fact, push the broadcast to be included on private cable networks as well as DTH networks, and this is a concern that they've expressed. The reason that, in fact, the centre is citing it is this particular act, the Cable Television Networks Act, whereby the government essentially says that this act provides for DD National to be carried on all private networks, and hence that effectively defeats the big $1 million that sports broadcasters are putting out, as this it would anyways be carried free of cost on private networks. Now, the Supreme Court judgment deliberated on the issue and clarified in August of 2017 that no case has been made out, that there is no linkage between the two acts, that the government cannot force the broadcasters to have these broadcasts, these sports broadcasts, on private television networks, and on the back of that, holding that no case has been made out for broadcast of matches on private cable or private DTH networks. Now, the amendment that the government is coming across to circumvent this judgment is that they will amend Section 3.1. They will draw the linkage between the two acts and essentially say that mandatory signal sharings of such sporting events with other networks where it is mandatory to show the DD channels, effectively saying that DD National will have to be carried by all networks, effectively saying that all the sports broadcast would then be available free of cost to all private cable operators as well as DTH networks. Now, this is not the only worry. The second worry is, of course, what constitutes national importance, as that is the criteria for which the government decides what can be broadcast free of cost and what needn't be. Now, as of right now, only international matches where players represent India, is that what's constituting national importance? Is IPL of a national importance? It's a private commercial league. Are private commercial sporting leagues also national importance? So there is a great deal of ambiguity with that as well. As of right now, the decision-making process is that the discretion rests completely with the MIB and that the MIB passes notifications without consultations. So a number of legal worries that stare the broadcasters in the face. We'll, of course, have to wait more clarity once the government formalizes a position. Back to you.
Well, thanks very much, Ashmit, for comprehensively setting out the context for what we are about to discuss. Joining us now to discuss this further, Nandan Kamath, Principal Lawyer at, also with us, Atul Pandey, CMD of Sports and Live Media Entertainment, Chintamani Rao, Independent Media Consultant with us. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. Atul, since you're here with me in the Delhi studio, let me start by asking you, this was a matter that seemed to have been settled by the Supreme Court in 2017, and now it looks like through this public consultation process that ends at the end of the year, the government intends to bring about amendments that will virtually make that 2017 Supreme Court order redundant.
Absolutely, and it's very surprising because 2017, 2007, when the Sports Act was passed, I thought this issue was dead and buried. Because the reality is that sports broadcasters are putting in a lot of money and basically building the business models on the fact that there will be exclusivity. And as we have seen in the few auctions which have happened in the last couple of years, the sporting rights values are increasing, which eventually helps Indian sports in Indian federations. But clearly by this kind of a rollback of sorts, if that's the word I may use, it puts the whole sporting broadcast business in a lot of conundrums, because really the old model on which they had built their business is pretty much redundant if it happens. So yes, it would be a serious worry for all sports broadcasters.
So are you saying that this could in fact spell the death knell as far as private sport broadcasters are concerned? Is it that extreme?
Well, it depends on how the notification eventually comes out, but clearly in terms of the route it's taking, if nothing is exclusive, then how does one build an aggressive business model around it? And clearly, the way the sports broadcasting business works, not only in India, worldwide, is that the broadcasters build affiliation around a product, and then they generate revenue through subscriptions, now through digital and through advertising. Now, the moment the feed is free to be shared on free public platforms, a significant part of the revenue disappears. So I wouldn't go as far as saying death knell, but yes, clearly it will be a significant impact on the revenue generating potential of the business. Okay,
let me also bring in Nandan Kamath, Principal Lawyer, who looks at this issue. Nandan, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. Very quickly, let's just get the legal positions out of the way. As Ashmit very categorically pointed out for us what the Supreme Court order had said. Now, in light of the notification that was issued last night, in fact, to deal with the Indian hockey tournament, and that now being made of national importance, or being defined as an event of national importance by the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, and that being done literally a fortnight before the event itself. Could this be an important precedent? Because, the issue of the amendment of the Sports Act itself is still open for consultation till the end of the year. But could this be an important precedent that could be challenged in court?
Shireen, I'm not sure we can actually challenge this in court, because there's just such a wide remit for the government to notify these events of national importance without any real criteria. And I think the lateness of this notification certainly comes as a surprise, because even under the rules itself, the private broadcaster actually has to notify Doordarshan 45 days before an event that it intends to broadcast an event, and then it's obliged to share. So it doesn't seem to be sort of an equivalent quid pro quo when just 15 days before an event you go and notify all of the matches of an event as matches of national importance.
Okay.
Just to take you back a little bit, initially only the matches that India played and the semi-finals and finals were notified, and suddenly you have the shift where an entire tournament is notified. So it's quite unprecedented in that sense.
No, so is there no legal recourse for private broadcasters?
In this instance, I can't see any successful challenge to the notification itself, because I think the remit and the powers of the central government are quite significant. So I don't see much of a way out with respect to the Hockey World Cup itself. But certainly, I think it's important that this actually becomes a basis to really look at our mandatory sharing laws anew. And in fact, many have been recommending a really serious review of mandatory sharing, given how much has changed in the broadcasting landscape. This is a law that's 10 years old. The Supreme Court looked at it very seriously last year and said that it had been applied wrongly. And I would say many people in the industry felt like, okay, that is a good judgment and that closes the matter. And just the events of the last few weeks seem to have opened up all of it in ways that do not really strike the right balance between public broadcasting and private broadcasting.
Okay, Chintamani Rao, on this larger issue of reviewing the rules pertaining to mandatory sharing, but the point that we're hearing here from Nandan is that it's virtually a fait accompli that the government has passed and broadcasters have no choice but to carry it forward.
Plus, I think there are really two separate issues here. One is, of course, the immediate, which is the Hockey World Cup. As Nandan said, not much can be done about that because this is very much within the framework of the 2007 Act and the rules. The larger question is about the sharing on cable, the Doordarshan, well, the proposed amendment, which will allow Doordarshan to carry the signal on cable and satellite. That is a huge one. And in fact, in this whole question of signal sharing, there is one part of it is what are events of national importance criteria, etc. I'll leave that aside for the moment. I have three questions I'd like someone to convince me on. One is, why a clean feed? Why, if the signal has to be shared because the events of national importance in the interest of the public, does the public is it also required that the public must only see Doordarshan sold ads? Two, why cable and satellite? Or for all the obvious reasons. And three, this ridiculous ticker that has to be carried. The ticker that tells the viewer, you don't have to watch it here, you can go to Doordarshan and watch it. Totally absurd in my view. And this needs to be challenged.
Okay, that needs to be challenged. But yes, I get the pain that you're expressing there. It's ironical that not just are private broadcasters being asked to share the feed that they've paid the money for with Doordarshan, but they also have to run a ticker across their screen saying that you can actually watch this event on Doordarshan. So you're going to have to provide marketing for free as well. But let me go across to my colleague Farah Butwala Bora. She joins us now to give us a sense of the implications, and I'll come back to the three gentlemen post that. Farah, how are private sport broadcasters reading into these developments?
Well, private sport broadcasters, that is Star and Sony, are crying foul at what they say is the sheer injustice of it all. They say that Doordarshan is aware that its own content is unattractive and its viewership is negligible, and the only way it can change that narrative is by jumping onto the sports bandwagon. Doordarshan does not have the funds to bid for media rights, and by amending the Sports Act, it would gain wide access to the telecast of notified sport events for what we've already discussed is absolutely free. This, the broadcasters say, stands unfairly to benefit Doordarshan by drawing viewers and advertisers to Doordarshan and eating away into the revenues of private broadcasters who, again, we've discussed, have shelled out billions of rupees for exclusive media rights. So broadcasters could see their subscription fees, subscription revenues fall by anywhere between 10 to 15% if this content exclusivity is gone. And by this exclusivity going, advertisers would also bargain hard on the premiums the channels have been commanding and may even move their advertising to Doordarshan. Even distribution networks, as we know, that is your local cable operators and private DTH platforms, would negotiate their rates. So if content right owners realize that there is no money to be made, even after shelling out top dollars, they will rationalize their multi-billion-dollar media rights budget, which then would pose a risk to the entire sporting ecosystem. This is what broadcasters and experts are warning. We've been hearing them on the show as well. So by killing the exclusivity and incentive of developing a sport, there is a larger problem. Broadcasters say it will lower their investment values and it will hurt the ecosystem. This in turn will affect funds committed by these broadcasters to the BCCI and these private leagues, which in turn will lead to lower investments into the sport itself. So the outcome would be that this amendment could perpetuate a vicious cycle of lower investment and growth for Indian sports. That's the big fear. Back to you.
All right, those are the key risks and the takeaways. Appreciate you joining us, Farah, with that. Atul, since the consultation process is still currently underway and we have time till the end of December, what is it that you would like to put on the table for the government to consider? I
think I would like to go back to the 2007 and 2017 the decisions by the Supreme Court because I think they were fairly equitable. The market, the playing field was level to everybody's satisfaction, given what the mandate from the Prasar Bharati is. If you ask me, the ideal question is why does even Doordarshan need to show this? Because, see, when 1993, when this problem started in the India-West Indies series, I think, then the cable penetration was a genuine issue. But now with 190 million homes connected on cable television, and especially events of national importance, specifically cricket, Olympics, being to as many as 100 million homes, that distribution issue is pretty much over.
Yeah.
So, I think we should just go back to the 2007 and 2017 decisions for the lack of a better alternative. Because this is purely, I think Farah was saying that this will impact the distribution revenues by 10 to 15%. My view is even more, because virtually anybody in the smaller cities who finds the sports content expensive will stop carrying these channels and essentially move to Doordarshan. So I think it's first steps first. We go back to the 2017 judgment and continue from there. And clearly, this will be contested. I think almost all the sports broadcasters will go to the government or the courts and ask them to reconsider.